There's been a lot of rumors and speculation surrounding Cynthia Erivo potentially being cast as Storm in the upcoming X-Men movie for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The actress herself has even expressed interest in playing the part, and there are fans of hers out there who are kind of advocating for her to work for the MCU. And while I personally don't think that she would necessarily fit the role, I can at least admit that she wouldn't necessarily be the worst casting decision imaginable, because at least when you come down to it, they're not doing like a race swap or anything like that. But that can't be said when it comes to Professor X too, because now we're hearing rumors that there's people on the inside at Marvel trying to push to have a race swap Professor X for the upcoming X-Men movie. Marvel Studios reportedly race swapping Professor X in the MCU. A new report reveals who Marvel Studios is considering for the MCU's Professor X. Now, I just want to emphasize for a moment here that these are just rumors, so you can take them with a pinch of salt. But one thing to consider is there's been people who's been talking about doing a race swap Professor X for some time. This article came out last summer, basically arguing why they should do a race swap Professor X for the X-Men movie in Marvel. And if there's people on the outside championing this sort of thing for several years now, then I think it stands to reason there's probably some people within Marvel Studios who are likewise also advocating to have a race swap Professor X in the upcoming X-Men movie. Marvel Studios is reportedly taking a new approach to casting the X-Men's next Professor X. While Fox's X-Men star Patrick Stewart is reprising his Charles Xavier role for Avengers Doomsday, the MCU is also gearing up for its own X-Men reboot, with several stars already rumored as Marvel's next mutants. While the MCU's X-Men project isn't expected until after 2027's Avengers Secret Wars and the conclusion of the multiverse saga, casting rumors are already dominating industry headlines, and that basically is just because we don't have any news so far. So there's going to be a lot of people speculating. You're going to get a lot of rumors, and this is just kind of more of all that. One of the biggest questions amidst the casting buzz is who Marvel Studios is considering for Professor X, the powerful telepath and founder of the X-Men, and now new reports suggest the MCU is considering black actors for the traditionally white character. Now, it's not like it would be unusual for Marvel Studios to do a race swap casting for characters, because they've done that plenty of times in the past with various other characters within Marvel Comics are being race swapped for the MCU roles. Some of them, there's a little bit more to go off of with their, like Nick Fury, I think is a good example, where in the original comics, Nick Fury was a white guy, but there was a run of the Marvel Avengers where Nick Fury was actually modeled after Samuel L. Jackson. So a lot of people didn't have a problem with them doing a race swap like that, but then there's other ones too. But I think this one will be a little bit trickier, so to speak, because Professor X is always been a white person for this sort of thing, and he's also a real prominent character. So I don't see how they can get away with doing this without basically suggesting that they're just doing it just for diversity's sake, because honestly, if that's the route that they're going to be going for it, that's probably the reason why they're doing it. And we've seen time and time again, when you're just casting characters simply to push an agenda, it usually doesn't work out well for the studio. And talking about the rumors for Marvel Studios' X-Men reboot, industry scooper Jeff Snyder via John Rocha's The Hot Mic revealed, I continue to hear black actors for Charles Xavier. I think that could be especially with a white director, because I really thought it was going to be a black director on this, but I wonder if that's the direction that Marvel wants to sort of take and to differentiate its Charles from Patrick Stewart and James McAvoy. And if that is the rationale behind it, I think that's kind of a stupid idea, trying to say like, oh, we need to do something different than what Patrick Stewart brought to the role or what James McAvoy brought to the role, because those guys are just white guys. We need to have someone black to be doing it differently. Now, keep in mind, both those actors actually had their own takes on Professor X, and you can see the similarities. At least with Patrick Stewart, he was the first one to do it for the screen. James McAvoy followed it, and you can see kind of like the semblance of the young Charles Xavier within his performance, but at the same time, he was still doing his own thing, and that's what was interesting about it. To suggest that you have to make it a black character or a non-white character in order to bring something different to the role, I think is just basically, for lack of a better term, it's racist, because you're not seeing anything outside of the character's race. I mean, just think about James Bond for a second, a long established character. And are you going to tell me that the way Sean Connery portrays him is the same way that Roger Moore portrays him, or Timothy Dalton, or Pierce Brosnan, or Daniel Craig? I mean, every one of those actors had their own take on the character. Even though it's the same character, they're all just white guys, they still did something different and brought something different to the role. I mean, a lot of that could be chalked up to the writing, but it's also just their performances as well. And I think what they should be doing is just try to stay as true to the source material as possible, and just find an actor that could channel that character, but also, yeah, kind of go about it in their own way, but still staying true to that character. There's a lot you can do without just simply making it a race swapped character and then hoping that that's enough of a stunt in order to get attention, because yes, it would get you attention, but not in the right way. Patrick Stewart first played Professor X in 2000's X-Men and seemingly concluded his role in 2017's Logan before crossing over into the MCU and Doctor Strange. Mom, James McAvoy, played the younger version of the X-Men founder in X-Men First Class and its subsequent sequels. And yeah, like I said, each one of those actors brought something different to the role, and that's what made them interesting to watch. And I think both of them actually did a pretty good job in it. Not all their movies were home runs, but I mean, I think at least for the X-Men movies go, either the younger versions of them and the original ones, I think they all had, there was more hits and misses. At least that's just me. Feel free to disagree with me in the comments though. Snyder went on to share with which star Marvel Studios want for Magneto, the traditional X-Men villain and former friend of Professor X, and why they then race swapping Charles Xavier may be a plan, saying the rumor was that they want Denzel Washington. Denzel Washington, I mean, even though I love him as an actor, I don't think he would do a good job as Professor X, or I don't think they should cast him as Professor X. Maybe that could win some people over because he still does have a lot of goodwill amongst audiences, but I think casting Denzel Washington as Professor X, I think that would just kind of reduce him as opposed to him elevating the rest of the project. And it also points out in this article, though, that that might be a little bit of an issue because Denzel Washington previously said that he was talking with Ryan Coogler about being in the next Black Panther movie. And if you want to cast him in a Black Panther movie, I'm all for that. I mean, if you can fit Denzel Washington into the MCU or whatever, I think he tends to have a habit of elevating what he's in. But like I said, I think if him being like cast in a divisive role like a race swap Charles Xavier, that would be some way of, that'd more likely reduce him than elevate that project. I know previously too, people have also talked about doing a race swapped Magneto, which I think that would do a lot more to ruin that character, because part of that character, because they're basically just going to try to substitute one grievance for the other, because previously Magneto, victim of the Holocaust or whatever, and that's a motivating factor to him. If some people are going to say like, oh, if he's a black man and he's a victim through like, I don't know, Jim Crow laws or other things like that, like, yes, that might lend a little bit more. I mean, you could probably get away with doing that, but I mean, I don't think you should really substitute the character's background in that manner. I think that you should just keep it as true as possible. And that's what I say about most things in regards to comic book casting or adaptations or anything like that. Just be as true to the source material as possible. Like I was saying, I don't think they should do a race swap Storm or anything like that. I mean, there's enough diversity within the X-Men. If that's your worry, you don't have to do race swap castings or anything like that in order to try to get enough diversity points. If that's the goal, like you have that there with the X-Men. So just be as faithful to the source material as possible and try to pay it some respect. Don't attack the fans. And I think you can actually do something well. I mean, if you have good enough people working on it, I mean, at least as well as what Marvel could potentially do. But I mean, if you do something like this, and what you're going to hear in the lead up to the release of the movie is people saying, we don't like the idea that you're race swapping the casting. Why don't you just stay true to the source material? And then you're just going to hear allegations of like, oh, if you don't like it, you're just a racist and other things like that. And people have eventually just gotten tired of being called racist. They're like, well, fine. If you're just going to attack me, then I'm not going to watch your movie. Many studios have tried this in the past and they've learned like, yeah, you're just going to fail at the box office if that's the approach you're going to take to these sort of things. So I think at least for now, some studios have shown that they've kind of learned their lesson in this regard, and they stopped just outright being antagonistic towards fans. Not all of them though. Marvel Studios they've made some progress in some areas and they've also not in others. So I'm not sure whether or not these are true, but like I said at the start of this video, I can see it at least being discussed behind the scenes. How serious those discussions are, I guess we'll just have to wait and see on this one. But honestly, if they did try to do this stunt and do a race swap casting for Professor X, I really wouldn't be surprised. But I hope that they're smarter than that and they will try to just do what's right by the character. But let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. And also, if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And don't forget to click that like button and share this video out there because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.